What's good in the hood, YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing you another video. Today we're doing another Transformers Robots in Disguise video. This is going to be the 5th episode. It's called W.W.O.D, and then there's a question mark. I don't really understand the meaning of that. Like, the last episode is called More Than Meets the Eye, which makes perfect sense because, you know, the original theme had Transformers more than meets the eye. I don't know why I said it like that. Just go with it. Transformers more than meets the eye. You know, they would do that. This name W.W.O.D doesn't really make much sense, and you may think to yourself, like, does the episode mention that? Really, not really. I mean, maybe it's something that supposed to come later that I'll talk about what I think it could be. I don't want to say it right now, just because if I say it, I'll be giving away what's going to happen in a little while. So just hold off, guys, a little bit. So anyway, the episode starts off with B and all the bots looking at the map of all the status pods, like where they're located and where they found them so far. And Fixit apparently believes that the all the locations of the status pods, like on the map, make the image of Megatron. Which, if that's true, that could mean technically that that's supposed to hint that Megatron should, hopefully at least, return in the show, which is something that I'd be very curious about, especially since, you know, Megatron is a different, you know, this is a different series. You know, Prime doesn't look the same way as he did in Prime, so I'm curious as to what Megatron could look like, and if that's, just in general, if that's true. And also, if it's not in this series, maybe if he's in a continuation or a secondary Robots in Disguise season that may happen in the next year or so. I mean, I have no idea, but, you know, if that's true, that'd be cool. So anyway, guys, that happens. But B's team, you know, I'm just gonna call him B now because, believe me, it's just easier. B's team, I was calling Bumblebee. It's probably easier now that I think about it, because they won't ever really calls him that except for in the older series. Anyway, Bumblebee's team basically treats him like he's nothing, and Bede feels very depressed about the fact that his team doesn't give him the same respect that, you know, Optimus got when he led the Autobots against Megatron or Starscream or any of those villains. And because of that, he feels terrible, and he wishes he were like Optimus. And he even speaks to some mirrors that he hopes, since you know, he spoke to a reflection in the past, that maybe the mirrors would be a similar situation, and maybe he'd be able to speak directly to Optimus through those mirrors and ask him about what he should do. That's when he ends up coming up with this idea where is since Optimus is known for having this very, you know, deep and commanding voice, that maybe if he uses a voice like that, his team might listen to him. So he tries it at first, not long after, and when he does this, his team more or less doesn't really like. They at first listen, but then he starts saying some stuff like, some really like hysterical stuff that's like very heroic, like, you must do this because it's our mission to do this because we have to do this. And it's just like, do you honestly believe that anyone would take you seriously when you start trying to act like some really like hero? Like, it just sounds really, really dumb. It goes from sounding like Optimus to an extent to sounding really, really bizarre. And the funny part is that when he does this, at least this time, Sideswipe thinks that he's trying to imitate Starscream, which is bizarre and doesn't make any sense at all, because that's not even close to how Starscream even sounds, because Starscream is always whining. He's not whining. That's the thing. Like, Starscream's known for whining. That's not a whining character. Anyway, following this, he tries that. Doesn't really work out well. And you may be wondering, what the purpose of it was. Well, the thing was is that they got a news broadcast that basically showed them an image of a status pod. The status pod supposedly has obviously a Decepticon in it, and they're not really sure what it is. Obviously, the humans at least. So what happens is that Danny has to go and speak to the people at this location, which is a scientific museum, like National Science Museum or whatever, and has to make it so that they can get in and get a free museum pass so they can just get directly in, because it costs money, of course, right? So anyway, this time though, Rusty wants to join in on the action, and he pretends to be this character named I think it's like Mr. Plank or something like that. It's really weird. He's trying to be like this adventurer, and then Danny's supposed to be like some special like researcher or something like that. It's weird. They're trying to act all cool, and they're trying to say, oh, if you do this we will give you something in return that's amazing, that will bring you lots of customers into your museum so that you will do extremely well. And the people believe it, even though it's really clear that it's complete garbage, because a little kid doing this, I kind of doubt it. And my first thoughts when I saw that was, are they trying to imitate Johnny Quest, if anyone remembers that show? Because that's sort of how it looks. It sort of looks like Johnny Quest in that way, like how he's just a boy and they're just trying to make him out like he's this cool adventurer. No, just don't even try. So anyway, what happens is that we then see them behind the museum. We then see the Autobots behind the museum, as well as Grimlock, waiting for them to be able to go inside the museum. And Danny comes out with Rusty, and they end up pressing the fire alarm to make everyone panic and leave the museum, so that and this results in the Autobots, obviously, as well as Grimlock, going inside of the museum, being able to walk around like they're just regular people, even though obviously they're bots. So anyway, once everyone's inside the building, they all split up from each other, aside from Danny and Rusty. At least they were supposed to stay together, but what happens is that Rusty separates from his father, and he does end up finding the status pod. The weird part that happens here is that I said before how he tries to act like this character named Mr. Plank. The part that really is bizarre about his character is the fact that he then starts to go into third person, and he starts to speak in third person like, Mr. Plank does this, Mr. Plank doesn't back away from a crime. Like, he acts like a detective. I'm just like, you're trying to go from adventurer to detective? What? Do you know who you are? Like, what are you doing? Are you going from, Indiana Jones to Sherlock Holmes or something like that? Seriously, it sort of sounds like that, like Indiana Jones to Sherlock Holmes. Don't even ask me. Just don't. So anyway, what happens is that he says all that, and then eventually the status pod opens up, and we get to see the Decepticon for the episode. The Decepticon is known as Terror Shock, and Terror Shock. And Terror Shock is supposed to be a Buffaloid, obviously meaning that he's supposed to be a Decepticon buffalo robot or whatever. And he has an interesting aspect about him, which is similar to how Underbite had the stronger he gets stronger the more he eats metal or whatever. In this case, Buffaloids are creatures that just don't stop rampaging, which makes perfect sense, because buffaloes, that's why there's always those situations where a whole bunch of animals get loose and they go and there's just a huge herd of creatures just roaming free, and it's a big scene or whatever. It's the same kind of idea. I'm forgetting the term that is, but you get the point. Anyway, being a buffalo, he's not very intelligent. He also has been trapped in that status pod for a very long time, so he's not very aware of the technology, and just because of the fact that he also is really not meant to be, because he's a buffaloid. Anyway, since they're in the museum, there's a lot of technology around there trying to show certain things, and he thinks that everything he's seeing in the museum is real. He sees this display that's supposed to represent the oceans and the water and all that, and he gets freaked out by lightning. That's really just an image of lightning. He gets freaked out by waves coming in, which is really just an image of waves. Like he gets freaked out as though they're real things, even though they're not. It's like when a caveman comes to the future, and it's like when you see those images, when you see movies and they have like a caveman freaking out when they see something that is like not real, and they're like, whoa, what's this? Oh my god, that's a real device, and they're all like freaked out by it, and they don't understand it because it's just not their thing. It's the same idea, more or less. So that's one thing to note about this, is the fact that he is very primitive, but the thing is that his strength is beyond incredible, and because of that, he's able. He ends up like knocking out pretty much all of them, and at one point, he ends up knocking B out of the museum. And just to make everyone aware, B does try again to speak in that Optimus voice, which doesn't really help, because he then says like, oh, I know what the issue was. I didn't do any of Optimus's hand gestures, which in reality, Optimus really didn't have many hand gestures. Like the voice, yeah, definitely had a commanding voice, but hand gestures, maybe every once in a while, but usually you don't see hand gestures from Optimus. Really, no. Like, really, it's just the voice. So, I don't know where that's coming from, and people took him even less seriously, and we're just like, okay, sure, we'll go with it. So, anyway, what happens is that B gets knocked out of the museum, and people see B. Yeah, they see B as B. They don't see him as, his vehicle mode. They see him in robot mode. The way that they manage to make it work so that he's not so that people don't freak out about it is that they say, oh yeah, the museum is creating these new animatronic robots and we're still testing the kinks out or whatever, and there's like a whole entire scene that happens which basically convinces the people, oh, it's no big deal, it's just these new robots, I'm sure it'll be fine, and people just take it like it's real, and it's cool. So that was a simple scene. So anyway, what happens then is we then get to see B going back into the museum with Danny and Rusty. They then end up walking through some hallways, and eventually B ends up communicating with the others, basically saying that the Buffaloid has gone loose. Terror Shock has gone loose or whatever, and so that makes them aware. And then suddenly B gets a message from Optimus, and Optimus explains here's his problem about how he wishes he were like him and how he's acting like him, and he says, I think I know your problem. And B wonders what his problem is, and it's that you aren't me. And the thing is that he doesn't have enough time to really say much else, but at first B thinks, oh god, he must think I'm terrible. He must think I'm a terrible leader. I must be an awful leader. And the thing is that Rusty explains to B basically that it's not that you're a terrible leader, it's that you're trying to be something you aren't. And that's the truth. Basically, B is trying to be Optimus, but B is B. So that's the issue. And B then learns from this and begins to act like himself, and the moment he begins to act like himself and begins to have plans that are himself and not try to make voices that aren't his own voice, the other bots open up to him and think he's brilliant. They show respect for him. They treat him like he's a god. And things just get so much better for B overall. So following this, they end up going by road in vehicle mode to go after Terror Shock. And Terror Shock has a vehicle mode, which is a bit unusual, but at the same time, I guess that makes sense. So yeah, he does have a vehicle, and the vehicle works perfectly fine. And the vehicle, though pretty obvious that it's a buffalo, because there's horns on top of the vehicle itself, so it's kind of obvious that it's probably either someone that has really weird design that they put on their cars, or something else. Don't tell me. Don't ask me. the thing is that they do manage to get him to do certain. They managed to work it out regardless and deduce which is Terror Shock. And since Terror Shock is a bull, what they figure out is that, I mean, not a bull, a buffalo. The way that they think that they can figure out how to deal with Terror Shock is basically treat him like a buffalo. You know, whip him a bunch, wrangle him up, bring him back to wherever they have to bring him to, and it works for a while, and he almost destroys a bridge, but fortunately Grimlock comes from above, smashes down on top of him, and they end up winning the good battle, and unfortunately for them, that's about it. And at that point, the episode pretty much ends. One thing that I forgot to mention in the past was the whole entire idea of, like, they had this constant cowboy theme going on in the background here and there, and the episode ends with them saying, like, we're gonna ride off into the sun like cowboys. And that's the important part that I forgot to mention. It's not that important, but at the same time, it matters to this episode. Like, this is the only episode where that even has some significance. You're never gonna ever hear B or anyone ever mention cowboys really ever again. I mean, I'll tell you that much right now. I doubt that they would do that because it's very clear that it's episode based, that general concept. But anyway, this was a very cool episode. There was some great humor, and it was just crazy seeing, you know, Terror Shock acting so stupid. It was just like, what? Okay, I get it, and I get what he's supposed to represent, and I get the meaning of the episode, and I get how he's supposed to show B acting as a true leader, and it's perfectly accurate and makes perfect sense. But still, you get the point. It's a bit offbeat. So anyway, guys, this was a fun episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I personally really did. And anyway, guys, please like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you guys for watching, and I hope to soon release another Transformers Robots in Disguise episode review, so stay tuned. There should be other videos that'll be coming out as well, and I hope you guys watch those too. So anyway, guys, until then, I will see you, and please, and my last thing I have to say to you guys is continue to stay awesome, and goodbye.